The mountains had always called out to me. Their picturesque beauty and the solitude they provided was what my soul craved. After months of planning, the weekend was finally here. Me and three of my closest friends, Linda, Jake, and Hannah, had decided to go on a hiking trip. Our journey started on a bright and clear morning. The air was crisp with a hint of pine. The only sound, apart from our chatter, was the crunch of leaves and twigs beneath our boots. By noon, we had reached our camping spot, a beautiful clearing surrounded by tall trees, overlooking a calm blue lake. As the day progressed, Jake began setting up the tents while Linda and I gathered firewood. Hannah decided to take a swim, but even in the midst of this idyllic setting, something felt off. I caught a whiff of a strong, unfamiliar scent. I turned around to see a man standing at the edge of our campsite, watching us intently. "Can we help you?" I called out, trying to mask the unease in my voice. He didn't say anything at first, just stared, and then in a low, gravelly voice, he said, "You shouldn't be here." With that, he disappeared into the woods. By evening, we were all seated around the campfire, trying to shrug off the unease. The unknown man's words played on repeat in my mind, but I kept telling myself he was just a local not used to visitors. However, as darkness blanketed the forest, the stillness was broken by another scent, the unmistakable smell of smoke. At first, it was faint, but it grew stronger, signaling a wildfire was approaching. Panicking, Jake suggested we pack up and leave, but the smoke was thickening quickly, reducing visibility. As we fumbled in the dark, I felt a firm grip on my arm. It was the man from earlier. His eyes looked wild, and in the dim light, I could see a blood-stained knife in his hand. "You shouldn't have come," he whispered menacingly, pushing me towards the fire. I screamed, alerting the others. In the chaos, the scent of smoke grew stronger, and the glow from the approaching wildfire was now evident. Jake tackled the man, struggling to disarm him, while Linda and Hannah tried to gather our belongings. My heart raced. Between the man's crazed demeanor and the approaching wildfire, our lives hung in the balance. As we made our escape, the man's chilling laughter echoed behind us. "You can run, but the flames will get you." Navigating through the thick smoke, we scrambled down the mountain. Our eyes stung and our lungs burned. But the fear of the man and the wildfire propelled us forward. Suddenly, Linda tripped. As I bent down to help her up, I caught sight of the man, his silhouette illuminated by the flames. He was right behind us. With adrenaline pumping through our veins, we reached a small creek. The water was our only hope to fend off the fire and the man. We jumped in, immersing ourselves, hoping the smoke and water would mask our scent. The sound of crackling flames grew closer, but the man's footsteps faded. Hours passed, and as dawn broke, the fire had been contained, and the man was nowhere to be seen. Drenched and exhausted, we were finally found by rescuers. The forest was devastated, but we were alive. Later, we learned the horrifying truth. The man had been a notorious serial killer, responsible for several deaths in the area. He had set the wildfire to trap and kill us. The forest had been his hunting ground for years. I've always had a penchant for old structures, colonial houses, abandoned factories, rusted railroad tracks. Their histories whispered secrets to me that I felt compelled to unravel. So when I found a crumbling old mansion at the edge of the city selling for an inexplicable bargain, my heart raced with excitement. After signing the deed, I began my renovation plans immediately. The first time I saw the house, the setting sun painted it in golden hues, its grandeur hiding the decades of neglect. Large bay windows looked down with blinded eyes, their glass shattered or frosted over with grime. The surrounding trees, ancient and gnarled, framed the house like silent sentinels. Inside was a labyrinth of rooms, each holding remnants of bygone days, rotting furniture, dusty portraits, and the stale air of confinement. As the days turned into weeks, I grew familiar with every nook and cranny, carefully restoring what was salvageable. Every wall I tore down, every floorboard I pried up, I felt closer to the house, as if it was slowly revealing its stories to me. However, There was one door that resisted all my attempts. Located in the farthest corner of the ground floor, it was made of thick, dark oak with a rusty, heavy padlock securing it. Curiosity gnawed at me. What secrets did this room hold? Why was it locked away? One evening, after a particularly tiring day of renovations, I sat down with a glass of wine, pondering that very door. Just as I was about to drift off to sleep, a thud echoed through the hallway. Startled, I sat upright, listening intently. Another thud, then the unmistakable sound of footsteps, growing fainter, heading towards the locked door. Fear and paranoia seized me. I wasn't alone in the house. I tiptoed to the front door, considering making a run for it, but something held me back. A need to know, a need to confront. Armed with a crowbar, I followed the sounds. To my shock, the padlock lay broken on the floor, and the door stood slightly ajar. Heart pounding, I pushed it open. What lay behind wasn't a room, but a set of old, creaky wooden stairs leading down into pitch darkness. The basement? How did I miss this during my initial exploration? Curiosity, again, overpowered my fear. I descended, guided only by the weak light of my cell phone. The basement was expansive, with arched stone ceilings and cobblestone floors. At the center, an ornate wooden table surrounded by chairs. On it lay old newspapers, dusty and yellowed with age, but the dates and headlines were shockingly recent. They spoke of disappearances in the city, the last one dated only a month ago. I gasped, feeling a cold breeze pass me. In the corner of the room, shackled to the wall, was a man, gaunt, dirty, with wild eyes that bore into mine. He whispered hoarsely, "You're not one of them, are you? Please help me." The implications crashed upon me. The locked door, the fresh newspapers, this man. Someone was using my house. But for what? Suddenly, footsteps echoed above, multiple pairs growing louder. Panic surged through me. They were coming back. I fumbled with the man's shackles, finally freeing him. Together, we bolted up the stairs, barricading the door behind us. We fled the house, hiding in the nearby woods. The lights of multiple vehicles approached the mansion, their occupants carrying torches. It was some kind of syndicate, a group that had been using the mansion's hidden basement for their nefarious activities long before I arrived. Hours seemed like minutes, and the night wore on, each moment a stretch of terror. But as dawn approached, we heard sirens. The neighbors, alarmed by the unusual activity, had called the police. The syndicate was arrested, their reign of horror finally at an end. The man, Luke, had been their most recent captive. An investigative journalist, he'd gotten too close to the truth and was taken. The engine stuttered, gasped, and gave out. My heart froze as the headlights flickered, then dimmed. It was late, far too late, and I was stranded on a narrow, deserted road, surrounded by a dense forest that was almost suffocating. The only sounds were the nocturnal whispers of nature and the rapid beat of my heart, echoing in my ears. I gripped the steering wheel, trying to process the next steps. I'd always been the sort to meticulously plan out my road trips, accounting for every variable. I'd never imagined I'd end up here. Pulling out my phone, I hoped to see bars of signal, but as expected, no service. I exhaled deeply. "Think," I muttered to myself. I knew there was a small town about 20 miles back. Going forward was uncertain, and it would be folly to venture deeper into unknown territory. The logical step was to head back. Turning on the hazard lights, I stepped out, the sharp cold air stinging my face. Every tiny noise seemed amplified, every rustle a potential threat. I started walking briskly, occasionally glancing behind. I wasn't sure if it was my paranoia or something real, but I felt like I was being watched. About 2 miles in, headlights approached. The relief was immense. Finally, I thought, someone can give me a lift. But as the car neared, it slowed down, almost crawling past me. Inside, I could make out a dark silhouette. The car didn't stop, but there was something profoundly unsettling about that slow drive-by. The back of my neck tingled as I watched the car's red taillights grow smaller in the distance. 10 minutes later, the same car came back from the direction I was heading. It slowed down, crawling again as it passed me. Panic set in. Why was this car patrolling this desolate road? My instincts screamed at me. I dove into the trees, trying to keep my breath quiet. The car stopped right where I'd been standing. The door creaked open. Silence. Moments felt like hours. Then I heard footsteps shuffling through the gravel. "He's gone," a deep voice rumbled. Another voice, raspy and cold, responded, "We'll find him." My mind raced, calculating odds, outcomes, risks. Should I make a run for it? Should I wait? But then a light shone through the trees. A flashlight. They were searching for me. Determined to avoid detection, I began moving deeper into the woods. I tried to move silently, avoiding twigs, but every rustle and snap seemed deafening. After what felt like hours, the faint sound of a distant highway reached my ears. Elated, I picked up my pace, desperate to reach safety. Suddenly, the ground gave way beneath me. I tumbled down a sharp incline, my world a blur of pain and fear. When I finally came to a stop, I was at the bottom of a ditch. My leg throbbed, and I realized with a sinking feeling that I had twisted my ankle. Forcing myself to stand, I limped towards the highway sounds. Just as the road came into view, headlights illuminated the area. The same car. My heart sank. I prepared for the worst. As the car neared, the window rolled down. But to my shock, it wasn't the strangers from before. A familiar face looked out. "Dave?" My voice was barely a whisper. "John? What the hell are you doing out here?" Dave was an old college buddy. I quickly relayed my ordeal. He looked horrified. "We need to get out of here," he said urgently. "This road is known for unexplained disappearances." We drove in silence, the weight of my near miss sinking in. When we reached the nearest town, Dave told me more. Locals avoided that road, talking of gangs that preyed on stranded motorists. I was just grateful to have made it out, thanks to a chance encounter with an old friend. I'd never look at a deserted road the same way again. The thrill of adventure was replaced by a cold realization. Sometimes terror lurks in the most unexpected places.